everyone, welcome to the OklaRoots YouTube channel. In today's tutorial, we are going to make something that I get requested for a lot. It is actually an item that we make and sell in the OklaRoots shop. It is actually the best selling item. Every time we've listed it, they have sold out very quickly within a matter of a few minutes. Today, we're going over the modified snack pouch. Now, this is a very simple design, to be completely honest, but it's so useful. We use them every single day. Let me show you. These are actually two kind of older ones. They're literally filled with chips right now. These are two that we use in school lunch boxes every single day. We have a bunch of these. We have washed these in washing machines so many times. We wash the insides by hand with just some warm soapy water every single day. They hold up great. What I particularly love about these, especially as snack bags for kids and for adults, for anybody, is that they have a flat bottom. So you can put them on your desk, on your lunch table, on your, wherever you are, open it up, pull out your snacks, and you don't have to worry about it falling over, things going everywhere. It really helps prevent a mess or an embarrassing moment for all of us. So we love these snack bags. We use them constantly, which is why we decided to make them, and we sold them in our shops. I honestly didn't think they were going to be that popular on our online shop because so many of you sew. I thought, well, who's gonna buy it? But it actually sells very, very well. So this is a fun version I made just the other day in preparation for the video. I did add a little bit of piping to this one. I'm not gonna show you piping in the video today because it's just a very simple addition you can add anywhere. The piping I used is this vinyl piping from Zor-El. I will have a link for it down in the description below. It adds such a fun detail to this. And then, of course, I have my leather bag tags. I put these on all my snack bags that we make in the shop. I will have a link for where I get these made as well. It's a local maker. She's amazing. You're going to love her. So this is what we're going to go over today. Snack bags. It's simple, it's quick, it's scrappy, it's satisfying, and they sell very, very well. So whether you're making them for personal use, for gifts, or to sell, it's a winning pattern. And there's lots of variations you can do with this. There's a lot of adjustments you can make to the size, little additions you can make, but I'm going to keep it as simple as possible. We're just going to do vinyl bottom, cool cotton top, pull lining. Now let's talk about pull for 1 second. I use food safe pull. Now this material is soft and it feels like fabric on the right side, but on the back, it's actually like a plasticky sheen. So that's the back of it. The right side is the side that feels like fabric, just soft. This is food safe. I'll have a link for where I get it down below, and it's fantastic for snack bags because, to be completely honest, we don't throw these in the washing machine every time we use them. For example, these are full of chips. So chips, at the end of the day, when it's empty, I'll just wipe out all the crumbs, and then I pull out the lining. So I'll share on this one. So I'll just pull out the lining over the sink. I'll take my sponge that has warm soapy water, and I just wash off the lining because the outside's fine. The lining is what I just want to wash off. So warm soapy water, wash it off just like when I'm doing the dishes, and then I lay it flat to dry, and then by the next day you tuck it in, it's good to go, everything's fine. Now, if we fill it with something a little bit messier, like sometimes you fill it with strawberries and maybe they were in there for too long and it kind of starts leaking through everywhere, then I would just throw this in the washing machine. I wash it with just a load of laundry, honestly. I'm not that picky. You know how me, guys, I like to keep everything as simple as possible. So this is a fantastic bag to make, and it's a fantastic bag to use. If you're new to the OklaRoots YouTube channel, please consider clicking subscribe down below. If at any point you like this video, please give it a like. Any questions, comments, anything else you want to say, leave them down in the comment section. I will have timestamps for this, but it should be a pretty quick video. I bet the intro is actually longer than most of the tutorial part. Okay, let's get started. All right, so here is your material for today. Everything is fat quarter friendly, so I'm going to suggest a fat quarter, but that will even be too much for all of this. First, you need your base. I'm using vinyl for this. I do suggest vinyl or waterproof canvas because it is firm, it won't flop down, it'll hold the bag up really nicely. We don't do a whole lot of sewing on this, so you should be okay. You don't need to use the really, really thick vinyl. Just any sort of more durable bottom is gonna be great. For the top, I like to use quilt cotton. You could also use cotton lycra. You can use whatever you want. You could use vinyl as well. Vinyl is going to be a little bit more challenging because this top piece is going to be sewed onto the zipper. However, you can use whatever you want. I like quilt cotton. I like the softness of it. But I would also really like to see this actually made with another vinyl on the top. I think I'm going to have to do that. And then for the lining, I'm using, like I said in the beginning, this food safe pull. There are a lot of different types of pull fabric out there. You could also use waterproof canvas. I know that my audience gets very concerned about whether or not the material touching their food is food safe, which is why I do invest in the food safe pull for the snack bags that I sell in my shop. If you were going to sell these as snack bags, I would suggest you do kind of the same thing. The only interfacing I'm using today is this Pellon Shape Flex, and it's going to be for the quilt cotton up top. If you're using, waterproof canvas or vinyl for the top, you don't need to add this at all. You could also use some fusible fleece with these bags. That's a really fun addition. So if you add fusible fleece to this, you could give it a little quilting look. I have done that on bags that were all quilt cotton. So that would actually be really cool if you did the fusible fleece on this and quilted the vinyl and the quilt cotton together. That would be a really cool look. So have fun with this. There are a ton of options for this. And then for my zipper today, I'm going to be using zipper tape. You could also use a pre-made zipper if you'd like. Just make sure it's the right size for how we're going to build this. And I'll give you all that information in just a moment. So here are all of the cuts. Now I will have these measurements in the description of this video if you don't feel like writing it down as I go through it. I don't have like a PDF pattern for this. You're just gonna have to write it down and wing it. Once you make one of them, trust me, you'll remember. First, I have my zipper tab. Now this is just a piece of quilt cotton and it's cut at 2 inches by 4 inches. Then I have my zipper. My zipper is 7.5 inches long. So whatever kind of zipper you're using, just make sure the total length of it is 7.5 inches. And I have my zipper pull on there. My top cuts are 8.5 inches wide by 3 1/4 inch tall. So I have 2 of these. And since they are quilt weight cotton, they both have the Shape Flex attached to the back of them. My base cuts are the same. They're 8.5 inches wide by 3 1/4 inch tall. Since these are vinyl, they don't have any interfacing on them. And then my lining cuts are 8.5 inches wide by 6 inches tall. And then I have this beautiful bag tag, which I will attach, I don't know, either to the top or the bottom. I haven't decided yet, but we'll put that on as we get to that point. Okay, and here's the other stuff I'm using today. You can see not a whole lot to this. I have my clover clips as always. I'm going to be using this 1/4 inch double-sided tape. This is that wash away tape. You can sew over this. It should be fine on your needle. This is not required, but it is very helpful. For my bottom thread, I have this Gutermann thread. You get this from Joann's. And then for my top thread, I'm using the Mara 70 weight thread. It's a little bit thicker and it looks nice on the top. My needle today is a Microtex 8012. If you're using a thinner material, you can definitely use a 7010. If you're using a lot of vinyl, you might want to kick it up to a 9014. But an 8012 is a good middle range needle. And then I have my stiletto to help me feed my material under the needle. Okay, so when we're building these, we like to do this as quick as possible. So we take as many items to the machine as we can in once. So I'm going to just show you kind of how we put it together, our little production line. First, let's work on our exterior panels. So you're going to take your bottom unit and lay it down, and then your top unit. They're both right side up, just like that. If your top panel or bottom panel has a direction, make sure you finagle that now, because we have sewn these together with the top panel upside down. And yep. So what we want to do is we want to lay it how we want in the end, and then we're going to fold them right sides together. And I am just going to use my clips here to clip along the edge that I'm going to be sewing, just like that. Do the same thing with your other exterior panel units. Okay, once you have these prepped, let's just set those to the side. Now let's prepare our zipper tab. So my zipper tab is 2 inches by 4 inches. It's going to become 2 zipper tabs, but just to make it easier, I keep it as one piece of fabric. When we're making a lot of these, and we're making maybe 6 of the same exact zippers, I'll just make this nice and long, 2 inches tall, but nice and long, maybe 12 inches wide, as long as I need it to be. And then I'll just sew all the zippers onto one zipper tab in one go. So I'm going to lay my zipper tab right side down, press it a little bit so it's not so crinkly. And then I'm going to press the unit wrong sides together, long sides together, just like that. And then press along that folded edge. Open it up. And then I'm going to press those long raw edges up to meet that midpoint line, wrong sides together. And I'm going to do it to both long edges. Okay, once you have that pressed, you can fold the whole unit in half, and now you have a little hot dog bun, just like that. So now, taking this little folded unit and your zipper tab, you're just going to take one of the raw edges of your zipper and just plop it right in there. Don't do it right in the center. Do it, closer to an edge. It doesn't have to be right on the edge. You can have a little bit of overhang here. And then I just grab 2 clips and clip on my zipper. And now what I do is I fold the whole unit in half like that. You can fold it like this if you'd like. Oh, here, we'll do that. Just to make sure our top stitching thread colors are the same on the zipper. So you can see I'm just bringing the other end around, and the zipper is long enough that you should be able to do this without much of a problem. When your zipper gets really short, then you can't really do this, but this should be long enough. There we go. So you see now I have this zipper ready to go, and I can just top stitch this on. So at the sewing machine, I'm going to take all of these units. For my exterior panels, I'm going to sew along the clipped edges at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. For my zipper, I'm going to top stitch along the bottom folded edge here closest to the zipper coils at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Alright, once you have these sewn, let's just work on the zipper real quick. We just want to cut off the edges of the zipper tab. So we're just cutting off the edges of the zipper tab right against the zipper tape. We want the zipper tabs to look like they're part of the zipper tape. So I'm just lining up my scissors along the edge of my tape and then trimming that tab. I'm going to do this for both sides of both ends. Here we go. See, now we just have this beautiful little zipper that has the tabs on the end, nice and clean. Now take your exterior panel and we're going to press the top panel up so that the seam that's holding the bottom and top panels together is behind the top panel. We're going to press it up just like that. Now you can use an iron for this. If you are, make sure you cover your vinyl with a scrap piece of fabric. I'm just going to finger press this. Another option is to use one of these seam rollers and just kind of roll along your seam to give it a good press. So do this with both of your exterior panels. Okay, now let's take our 2 exterior panels to the sewing machine and we're going to top stitch along the top panel at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. The seam needs to be behind the top panel. I mean, that's the whole point of this top stitching here, is to hold down that seam underneath the top panels. Alright, now that these are done, I'm going to attach my bag tag. Now sometimes I like to add it on the bottom panel. Remember, on the bottom panel, you're going to lose a lot of this because we're boxing that. So while right now it looks kind of centered, once it's boxed, it's going to be lost. For example, you see this tag here, it's right on the bottom. So if that's the look you want, go for that. Or we can attach it to the top. So I think this time I'm actually going to attach it to the top panel, centered right above the seam. So I can feel where that seam is, where that little bit of vinyl is behind my top panel. And I'm just going to center it right on top of there. To help make sure it's perfect, I'm going to find the midpoints along the top edges of both of my exterior panels, which we're going to have to do later anyways. So I'm going to fold this in half, and I'm just folding it in half so I can find that middle mark right there. You can use a pen if you'd like, or you can use a rotary cutter or scissors. Make the tiniest cut if you are using scissors or a rotary cutter, because you can see it was super tiny, but it's perfect for the triangle. So I'm going to do this to the other panel as well, just so I have it ready. So now I can use my ruler here to just help me keep things centered. I'm not necessarily measuring down anywhere. I'm just trying to make sure I center my tag with the center of the top panel. To be completely honest, it's not that big of a deal. If you want it off-centered, that looks cute too. It doesn't have to be perfect. But if you wanted it to be centered, this is how I'm doing it. So for me, I'm measuring 1.5 inches down from the top edge, using the midpoint to line up my tag, just like that. There we go. If you want, you can grab a piece of double-sided tape and add it to the back and just tape this down. That way you don't have to worry about this moving on you at the sewing machine. There we go. Okay, so now I'm just going to take this back to the machine and I'm going to top stitch around all 4 edges of my bag tag at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. There we go. Isn't that cute? Jade over at the Heartwood and Hide, she does such a fantastic job with these. You can get these in leather, or you can get them in faux leather vinyl. So this one here is actually faux leather vinyl, so it's much thinner and very easy for a domestic sewing machine to sew on. You could also get them in cork. She has so many options, and she's such a pleasure to work with. So I highly, highly recommend these tags if you're interested. Okay, so now we can grab all of our units and just put this bag together. So I'm gonna start with my exterior panel that has my tag. I'm gonna lay that right side up. Then I'm gonna grab my zipper, and I need to find the midpoint marks on my zipper tape. Now to do that, I just fold this in half and pinch it. And you can use a marker here and mark it. Just make sure you stay in the seam. Or you can use scissors to just kind of cut right on that fold. So now I'm gonna take my zipper, and with the zipper pull when closed going to the left, I'm gonna lay my zipper right side down. Now you'll notice our zipper is shorter than the exterior panel. It's supposed to be. It's supposed to be. So I'm gonna line up these midpoint marks. Remember, my zipper and my exterior panel are right sides together. So I'll clip the midpoint mark first, and then I'll clip out to the sides. Here we go. Now I'm gonna take this to the sewing machine, and I'm gonna baste down this top edge at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Basting means I'm just using a really big stitch. If I need to undo it because it's messed up, then it'll be easier to do. You could do a smaller stitch if you like, but really a big 4mm, 5mm long stitch is going to be fine for basting. All right, now that I have the zipper attached to the exterior, I want to attach my lining panel. Now I'm gonna lay my lining panel. Remember, if it's pull, the soft fabric-y side, that's the right side. The shiny plasticky side, that's the back, that's the wrong side. And we're gonna lay this right side down along the back of my zipper tape and just clip it to the top edge of the zipper and exterior panels you already have stitched together. It should be the same size, but let's talk about pull fabric for a moment. So here's the thing. Pull fabric is not that difficult to work with most of the time. My mom and I have a theory that the light blue color of pull is the worst to work with. It stretches so bad at the machine, it sticks to the presser foot. It is a bit of a nightmare sewing with this blue pull fabric. What you can do is use this double-sided tape and then lay it along this top edge of your zipper and exterior. Push it down nicely, remove the paper, and then take your pull lining and lay it right side down on that tape. And the purpose of this is that the tape should hopefully prevent the pull from stretching too much. It's not a guarantee though, guys. Okay, so now that I have these taped together, I'm gonna take this to the sewing machine and I'm gonna sew along this top edge at 1/4 inch seam allowance. You could sew it at a 3/8 inch seam allowance if you can get that close to your zipper teeth. Otherwise, 1/4 inch is fine. Alright, there we go. So using the double-sided tape definitely helps. If you noticed at the sewing machine, I also put down a piece of just regular clear tape underneath my presser foot, and that helps the metal from sticking to this kind of sticky back. Again, other colors we have no problem with whatsoever. It's always light blue. Now what we want to do is pull our fabric back. So our lining and our exteriors are now going to be wrong sides together. Just pull them away from each other. Try to get all of the edges lined up, and that will help keep the seam by the zipper nice and straight. And you can press along this edge with an iron if you'd like. I honestly just finger press it. All right, and now we're gonna top stitch along this edge, but only along the zipper tape. So I don't top stitch off the edges. That makes it easier for me to fold this a little bit in the end when I construct the whole thing together. So we're just going to top stitch wherever there's zipper tape, including the zipper tabs, but we're not gonna go off the edge. I do back stitch at the beginning and the end of both of these, and then just do your best to keep this zipper nice and straight. All right, there we go. Isn't that adorable? So now you have one side complete. Let's do the same thing on the other side. So take your other exterior panel and lay it right side up. Grab your unit with the zipper and lay it right side down. So the zipper is right side down, the lining is right side up. Match up the midpoints between the raw edge of your zipper tape and the top edge of your remaining exterior panel. Clip together at the midpoint and then clip along the edges. There we go. And now we're going to just baste along this top clipped edge at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. So once you have that top stitched in place, we're going to attach the remaining lining panel. Remember, lay it right side down along the back edge of your zipper tape. And just like before, I'm going to use my double-sided tape to help with this. If you're using quilt cotton for your lining, you definitely don't need to use the double-sided tape. You can just use clips, it'll be fine. But with stickier material, double-sided tape really helps. All right, so all I have to do is line up the edges and press it down. There we go. Now I'm going to sew along this top edge right here at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, now we can push away the lining and the exterior so that they are wrong sides together. And like I said, I like to line up the bottom edges and clip those to help me keep my top edge nice and straight. So I can just kind of tug along this right here. And you can press this with an iron, and iron will help keep this really flat so that when you go to the sewing machine, you don't have to worry about any kind of wonky zippers. There we go. So now I'm going to top stitch along this edge. Remember, I'm only top stitching along the zipper tape. So I'm not going all the way off the top and the bottom, and I do back stitch at the beginning and the end. I only back stitch 1 stitch. So I go 1 stitch forward, 1 stitch back, all the way down, 1 stitch back, 1 stitch forward. You see, keep it as clean as possible. All right, there we go. This is what your unit should look like now. Your linings are running away from each other, as are your exteriors. Okay, so now let's open our zipper about halfway. We don't want to open it all the way because our zipper pull could accidentally get caught in that seam, and that would be scary. So I'm just going to open it halfway, just like that. And I'm going to take my exterior panels and fold them up right sides together. So I'm going to turn this, and I'm going to fold my lining panels right sides together as well. Now, I like to take my seams between the exterior and the lining, and I like to fold them down towards the lining panel. And I know that's not the way they want to go. They want to fold up towards the exterior panel. But I found when we fold it down towards the lining, it helps the corners pop up really nicely. So I'm going to do my best to keep these folded down towards the lining panel. That's also why I didn't top stitch all the way over here. There we go. So I clip those first, and now I'm going to go to the exterior panel, and I'm lining up the seam between the bottom and top panels so that they match up. So that way around the entire bag it looks, you know, lined up and straight. And then I'll clip along the rest of the edges. Okay, so I have my exterior completely clipped, ready to go. Now let's clip the lining section. So for the lining, we don't really have any middle seams to match up, so just match up the side and bottom edges. Okay, now at the bottom of my lining panel, I am going to leave a 4-inch opening. So I'm just going to grab a marking tool and measure out 4 inches and mark that opening. So now when I'm sewing on the lining, I'm going to sew at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. When I'm sewing on the exterior, I'm sewing at a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Right here in the middle where they connect, 3/8 of an inch. I like to use a zipper foot because when we get to the seam here right by the zipper, I want to get as close as I can to those zipper tabs, but I don't want to sew over them. So as we get there, feel around. You do not want to sew on these zipper tabs. You just want to get right next to them. The closer you are, the better it's going to look. You're not going to have a little hole on the end. So I'm going to start down here in the bottom. I'm going to start at a 1/2 inch seam allowance along the bottom edge and then up towards the top. As I get to this seam, I'm going to decrease it to a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Sew along the entire exterior unit at a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance until I get past the seam with the zipper, and then I'll increase it again to a 1/2 inch, and I'm going to stop at my marked line down here so that I don't sew over this hole right here. We're going to need that hole to turn everything out later. There we go. Now you can see at the sewing machine, I went over the exterior stitching one more time. And I think that's very important, especially around the zipper here. So you go over this. If you don't go over the whole thing a second time, at least back stitch really well over this zipper connector area here, because it gets bulky and you don't want, you know, this to kind of rip. This is where you're going to get a lot of usage. You don't want that to rip. So reinforce that as much as you can. Okay, so now we want to box the corners. So what I like to do is I'm going to measure in from the stitching. And every time I get asked this question, why don't you measure in from the raw edges? And part of that is because the seam allowance changes, and it's just more accurate if you measure in from your stitches. So I'm measuring in from my stitches on the side and the bottom, 3/4 of an inch. So a 3/4 inch square from the innermost stitches. And then I'm just going to use my marker to draw that little box. See? So it's 3/4 of an inch in from the stitching, but it's more if you count it in the seam allowance, which I don't. So 3/4 of an inch on the exterior and also on the lining. 3/4 of an inch from the stitching everywhere. All right, once you have those little boxes marked, now we're just gonna cut them. So cut right on your lines. Alrighty, there we go. Now, to box these corners, I like to tug towards the bottom here, and you might want to reach in and open your zipper all the way now, because it'll be fine. So I like to tug from the middle of the fabric here, and that's going to make getting this flat easier. So I tug down here, and I'm pulling those corners from our boxes away from each other, and then the seams are going to come together. And now I nest my seams, so I make one seam go to the right, one seam go to the left, and just hug them. And then that should get this as flat as it can get. So if you don't pull down here, if you just focus on flattening this out right at the tip, you might notice this starts rounding. So if you pull down towards the middle, it's gonna help get this part right here flatter. So once I have it nice and flat, I add some clips on the cut edge and also on the folds around it to hold it in place. I'm gonna do the same thing over here. And for the exterior especially, pay attention to which way you're folding your seam. So my seam is folded towards the left on this edge that I already clipped. So I'm gonna make sure it keeps folding that way on the opposite edge as well. You don't want your seam twisted on the bottom. That might make it a little bit harder for this to stand up straight. And keep everything nice and flat. There we go, clip that. Okay, so there's the exterior. I'm gonna do the same thing with the lining. I clip all 4 of these. And with the lining, guys, just don't worry so much about everything being perfect. The lining, honestly, you can be very sloppy with the lining, with your seam allowance, with shifting, with everything, and it's not noticeable at all. Especially for a snack bag. The lining just needs to be completely closed. That's the goal for the lining. There we go. Now I have all 4 corners clipped. I'm going to take this to the sewing machine. I'm going to sew along every single one of these 4 edges at a 3/8 inch seam allowance. All right, here we go. And as you saw, I went over the exterior corners 2 times. When I'm doing vinyl, I always go over it twice. Vinyl has a tendency to pull at stitches. I just like to avoid having to fix it later. Just go over it twice. So now let's pull the whole unit out through that hole in the lining. Depending on your material, this can be very easy or a little bit more challenging. I like to put my hand inside and poke out the corners for my exterior. Oh yeah, that looks cute. This is a cute one. Oh, this is so fun. And then we're gonna poke out the zipper tabs. And if you didn't sew over them, you should be able to do this. You should have a nice clean finish up here. There we go. Oh yeah, that looks cute. So when you poke this out, there is just like the smallest little hole between the edge of the exterior and your zipper tab, but it's not much. Look how cute that is. Okay, so let's close up our lining. So I'm gonna pull my lining out. There we go. So it's all right side out. And then I just put my fingers in the corners of that opening and just kind of tug a little bit. And that'll get the lining to fold down on itself. It should fold down a 1/2 inch. If it folds down more, if it folds down less, you're gonna be fine. Again, it's the lining. I don't stress out about that. Here we go. So I'm just clipping along that open edge so that it's nice and even and all the raw edges are tucked inside. And now let's just sew along this raw edge at an 1/8 inch seam allowance. Okay, once that's sewn shut, just tuck it in there. And you can push out your box corners. It all should line up nice. It shouldn't be too baggy because we made it smaller. And there you go. And you see when you put it on your table like this and it's full of stuff, it doesn't fall over. It'll hold up. Kids can reach in, grab all their yummies. You don't have to worry about it. You can zip it up. And there you go. Isn't that sweet? Oh, I love these little snack bags. Oh my gosh, it's so cute. I love these snack bags. You know how I say all the time, I can make 1,000,000. Well, we might actually make 1,000,000 of these. We love making them. We love selling them. I love seeing people receive them and how they use them out and about. It is a great, great little bag for kids, for lunch boxes, for traveling. You could definitely add a little D-ring on the side and then like a little wristlet strap. So if you want to do something like that, and you can play with the proportions of this. So like I said, all the measurements are down below, but if you want to make it taller, make it taller. If you want to keep this kind of two-tone shape, I suggest just keeping the sizes of the top and the bottom the same. You can see it's not halfway because we box it. So the top has a bigger bit than the bottom. But play with this. You can make it very big. For example, I have a cookie bag tutorial that I'll have linked down in the description below. That's a much bigger version of this, but it's essentially the exact same thing. And I know a lot of you guys are gonna ask about like leak proof with pull fabric. So here's the thing. What I see people using the pull fabric for the most are baby diapers, baby cloth diapers. It's very popular for that. Yes, there are very specific things you can use to make it leak proof. There's specific thread and needles you can use to make sure it doesn't leak. We're not using those in this tutorial. That's not the point of this. This is not a cereal bag. Don't put your yogurt in it. Don't fill it up with ketchup and dip your, chicken nuggets in it. It's not for that, okay? This is mostly for sandwiches, chips. Yes, we put strawberries in it, but I'm not filling it up with any sort of a liquid because we've got these holes on the top by our zipper tabs, right? This isn't for liquid. It's not for liquid. If you want to make it for liquid, I would love to see how you do that. I think that would be amazing. I'm a big fan of seeing how this would be modified in a even more useful way. So if you do that, let me know. Send me a message. Let me know. But this specific tutorial is a snack bag tutorial for more dry-based items. So I hope you love making these. They're so much fun. They come together so fast. They're a fantastic scrap buster. If you have a small business where you're already making handmade items like clothing or bags, you probably have plenty of scraps that would be fantastic for these snack bags. This is a great little add-on to your business. Snack bags are a fantastic item for your shop. Fantastic. And also just a fantastic item to make, especially if you are not really in the mood to sew, but you want to sew. You know what I mean? Like you really want to make something, but you just don't want to actually make something. This is a great, great bag to kind of boost that sojo, get you back in the sewing room, have some fun with what you do. Okay, I hope you have a great day. I hope you have a fantastic rest of the week. If you make these, make sure you let me know. Tag me all over the social medias. Make sure you use the hashtag OklaRoots. I will come find you. Get out there and make something. Bye, guys.